a voice-enabled AI sales agent which can engage and communicate with your prospect customer like a human, and also call external API or tools, or maybe integrate with your CRM to fetch or update real-time data to automate the entire sales process for your business. Sounds like an interesting project? Join me in this video as we step through the entire process from setup to sale through the code to deploy this AI sales agent locally. If you are new to the channel, my name is Abhijit. We're watching Know Together, where I try to simplify latest tech and innovation for your future and your business. Let's get started. Whether you're a beginner eager to explore the world of Python-based web apps, or a business owner looking to integrate AI in your business workflow, this tutorial has got you covered. This is the fourth part of our video series on creating an AI sales agent, and if you have straight landed into this video, you might want to check out the previous three parts of this series, where in the first part, I have discussed the design of the entire project that we're trying to build here. Then in the second part, we have created an TTS and STT server, which is a text-to-speech and speech-to-text server running locally, and also created our first draft of the AI sales agent. In the third part, we have integrated our AI sales agent with Twilio API to make real call to a potential customer and make conversation with the customer. And so what was remaining is to integrate this AI sales agent with external tool and API calling so that the AI sales agent can retrieve or push real-time information as and when it is required as part of the conversation with the user. And this was the code that we have created in our last part of the video, where we have integrated Elevenlabs for doing human-like communication, and we have also integrated with Twilio API to make call to the customer, and also use AI to process users' input to respond them back. However, based on your feedback and also as part of my testing, I have found several issues with this code. For example, one of the issue was this is one long code in one file that makes it very difficult to manage and also improve. The second problem was we have been using Flask session to manage different states such as conversation history, which is not really efficient here because this AI sales agent is going to use Twilio API internally, so there is no client or browser here to manage the session or the cookie. That is where I had to update the whole logic to use more in-memory sessions, which I will talk later in the video. So without much further ado, let's go dive into the code and see how I have fixed a lot of this issue. And of course, I have also integrated external tool or API calling as part of this latest version of the code. So let's go ahead and do an in-depth review of the code. So first thing first, I have introduced a .env sample, that is you need to copy into a .env file, and it contains all the necessary token and URL and voice ID and OpenAI API key information, along with the client or your company's information, for example your company name or your client's company name, their business, the product or services that they offer, what is the purpose that the AI sales agent would try to achieve as part of the conversation, and also this AI sales agent name that you want to define here. So these are all part of the configuration. And then I have introduced a config.py, which is a very simple Python file which will basically load all the environment variables into a config object that we can use across all of our Python files. Now, of course, the application starts with app.py. So the app.py actually contains all the actual Flask API route that will be used in calling the application and also making the conversation using Twilio API. Now, I have already discussed in very much detail in the last part about how each of these API routes are being used when you are making call with Twilio. I'm not going to go into very details, but I'm going to give you some brief idea towards the end of this video how this is all working. One of the things that I have done is I have taken away all the core processing logic from app.py. Instead, I have created different methods into different AI helpers or audio helpers file, and then the app.py is calling those functions, and I'm kind of importing all those functions in this file. So if you go and open the AI helpers, so the AI helpers contains all the required functions that is required for processing of the message or the conversation history by the AI sales agent. Wait for a few minutes after I complete the overall structure of all the Python files, then I'll discuss about how each functions are working. Now the audio helpers.py contains code logic that is required to generate the human-like audio. Now, of course, I am using Elevenlabs here, but the reason why I have separated this file is because if I want to use some other API provider, for example, a DeepGram or something else, I can easily change this function or maybe change the provider here. Similarly, I have created prompts.py. So all the prompts that is going to be used by the AI sales agent is now in a separate file. And I have used the LangChain's prompt template. The reason why I have used a prompt template is because prompt template allows you to create prompts using Ginger 2 templating. That means you can use variables inside your prompts, which you can fill it up. For example, if you go to aihelpers.py, you can see that we are importing this prompt template, and then we are filling up this prompt template with different variable values. And this is all dynamic. For example, whenever the communication will happen, the prompt template will be filled up with all the necessary information like the updated conversation history or stage, and based on that the AI sales agent will make decisions. I have also introduced something called stage. Now, to be frank, this concept is more or less inspired from the Sales GPT project. You may want to check out the Sales GPT project, how they are using the conversation stage. Now, the planning that I have done as part of this creating this agent is to make support for both inbound and outbound call by the AI sales agent. So that is where you see when there is an inbound conversation, for example, when a user have filled up the details in a website or in a form and then click call now, at that stage, basically we do not need to do qualification whether the user is the right person to talk to or not, because at that stage user have provided all those information as part of the form that he has filled up. So that is why the inbound conversation stage doesn't have the qualification stage, but the outbound does have the qualification stage. And finally, I have also introduced this tools.py. Now tools.py is where you will define all your external API or external tool calling capability. For example, I have created different function like calendar meeting, appointment availability checker, fetching product price, which is calling an external URL, and on-site appointment, etc. And of course, these functions are like dummy functions for now. For example, it's now returning as static response, but you can definitely change this based on the API call. I have given an example here for fetch product price, which I'm going to show you in just a few moments. And then I have introduced the Docker file and the Docker Compose file. So Docker file and Docker Compose file will ensure that all these codes are wrapped into a Docker container, which you can run using this Docker Compose file without having to install Python or manage different Python environments and etc. So the entire project can be simply run using a Docker container. That means you can run it on Windows, you can run it on Linux server or in cloud server. And one of the last thing that I have done is I have documented each and every steps in a readme.markup file. This contains every step, and it also talks about the files, what each file is created for and used for, and how you can change it, and all this documentation is there. Of course, this documentation can be updated as well, which I will do later on as and when I'll update the code. Now let's go through and look at the code in a little bit more in depth to understand how everything is working all together. So let's first check the app.py, which is the entry point for this script. Now, if you see here, I have introduced Redis. So if you're not aware, Redis is an in-memory database that you can use to store different application specific state. So the Redis is introduced to support parallel calling. So that means if a parallel customer call this AI sales agent, it should be able to track different state of the conversation for each of the communication. It should be able to manage and save the message history or the conversation history separately. So for all those reasons, I have introduced Redis. Now in the earlier video, in the part 3 video, I had introduced session management, which is a feature of Flask. But the problem with session was Flask session management uses something called cookie, but because this AI sales agent is being used in a phone conversation where there is no client or browser present, so that means there is a problem of doing a cookie management, or there is a problem of managing state using cookies or sessions. That is where I have first planned to use server-side session management. Again, that was also something very difficult to do using Flask session. without using a browser, because even for server-side management, you need some kind of identifier to be passed on in each and every API call. Whenever, let's say, Twilio is calling back, it should send some kind of identifier using which I can call the server session management functionality to fetch the states. But that was also not possible, right? And that is why what I have done is I have introduced the Redis here. So Redis is a small in-memory database where for every time there would be a new call, what I'm doing is I'm creating a random ID for that conversation and then saving all the state in the Redis database against this unique ID for that conversation. So that means I also have to pass this user ID in between this different function or the API, and that is what I am doing here. If you see closely in the code, for example, here when it is redirecting to /gather this API, it is also passing the unique ID as a parameter. You go to process speech, also same thing. As part of process speech, at the end when it is redirecting back to the gather API, it is also sending the call SID, which is the unique identifier that is created at the start of the conversation. Okay, so let's take a quick look what is happening. Here we are providing the customer name, customer phone number, and business detail or the problem details. And once this call is made, that ends up into the start call route. And then in the start call, what we are setting is we are fetching the customer name, phone number, and business details, and then calling this process initial message function. Of course, this is written in AI helper. So if you go back to the AI helper, here what we are doing is we are importing the prompt template. The template says that you have a specific conversation purpose, which is again you can set in the env file, your company name, business details, and everything else. And then I am also giving some example how the AI agent should craft response. This is called few shot prompting. The reason why I have done that is because in the last part of the video, whatever sales agent I have created, it was generating a long response, which was really not engaging, and it was also not very realistic phone conversation type. That is why I have given some examples so that the AI agent knows what kind of response or short response that it should generate based on the information that is provided. So process initial message is where we are creating the prompt, we are filling up all these details live whenever the call is being made, and then we are setting this prompt as an system prompt, and then we are calling this gen AI output function and passing the customer name, customer details, and the system prompt. Now the gen AI output is where we are using OpenAI to create the response. You can use Groq as well. I have tested the Groq code here. So you can use Groq, which generates much faster code. But in my testing, I have found OpenAI to be generating more realistic response than Groq. Now coming back, once the response is received, we are returning the response back to the app.py. So we have received the AI response. Now we are calling the text-to-speech API in Elevenlabs with the response here, which is receiving the human-like audio for that particular output. And then we are saving this, we are saving the audio data as MP3 file temporarily using this function. If you can see here, we are saving it as MP3. And then we are creating a message history, because we need to save message history so that AI agent knows at what stage of communication or at what stage of sales process we are in. And then based on that, it creates the next response, so that it doesn't kind of generate the same response again and again. And this is where we are using Redis client and using the unique ID that we have created to dump the message history in the database or in the in-memory database, so that it can be read later on as and when the conversation proceeds. And finally, we are using the Twilio's response.play method to play the audio over the phone. And once that is done, we are redirecting it to the gather input URL, which is this URL. And in the gather API, what is happening is basically we are gathering the input or the response from the user. And once we gather that response, we call the process speech method or the process speech API, which is here. Now, once we go to the process speech API, the first thing what we are doing is we are retrieving the SID, unique identifier that we have created for that particular conversation. And then using the call SID, we are first fetching the message history from the Redis, because we need that to be passed on for the next conversation. And then we are calling the process message. Now in the process message is where most of the important logics are happening. So when process message function is called, two things that is being passed here. One is the message history, and also the user input, that is the input that user have given over the phone. Now we will discuss this part of the code later on. Let's first focus on this part. So this is agent prompt outbound template. So the outbound template basically says, as the sales agent, you are continuing the conversation and maintain the concise response and client's interest. And here we specify what are the conversation stage that the user is in, the conversation stage ID. For example, if you go to the stages, you will see every stage have a specific ID. So we wanted to pass the ID here. So that the AI sales agent know that what part of conversation stage it is in, and based on that it can generate a response. We pass in all the conversation stages that is available to the agent. And then here we also specify the tool response. That means if the agent needs to call an external tool, and if it has called that tool, what was the response from the tool. Now I will come back in just a few minutes how the tool response is being received. And then again, I have added a few of the examples how the AI agent should respond. And finally, we have added the conversation history. So this is what is being filled up here. Using the prompt template, we are passing all these details. And then we are, again, same thing, we are adding this prompt as a system prompt, and then the user input as user prompt, and then basically calling the GenAI output function, similar like before, to generate the output. Now, as the conversation progresses, there might be a situation where the sales agent needs to make a call outside tool or an outside function. For that reason, as I have shown before, we have created a tools.py. And the tools.py is a Python file where we have defined all the external API. You can actually even add your own tools or external API as a separate function here. Now, at the moment, if you see, all this function is returning a static response because I just wanted to test this. But I also created this particular function, fetch product price, where you need to specify an argument which will fetch the price real time by calling this API. So if I open the Postman, and here if I say give me the price for a platinum gym membership, this will give me like $29.99. If I provide gold gym membership, that will provide $19.99. So for example, if this AI sales agent is working for a gym company and it has made, let's say, an outbound call or inbound call, and the user have asked, okay, tell me what is your gold membership price, the AI sales agent should be able to make call to this particular function, which will in turn call the API to get the response. And then that response is basically coming back here in the AI help function, for example here, and that is saved as a tool output, and that particular tool output is we are passing into the prompt. Now the interesting way how I have kind of tackled this function calling is not using OpenAI function calling feature, because what I have realized that you might not want to use OpenAI model, right? You might want to use a locally hosted large language model, or maybe a cheaper model or a small model, right? So I did not want it to have a feature or function calling feature that is specific to a particular AI model. That is where I need to use a bit of static approach. However, there is some way I can make it dynamic, which I will work on later. But let's talk about what I have implemented so far. So basically what I have done is if you go back to the prompts.py, you will see that I have created a prompt called stage tool analyzer prompt. Now this is basically a customized prompt which will read through the company's product and service, conversation history, user input, and all these details. And based on that, it will make a decision whether a tool calling is required or not. It kind of identifies that a tool calling is required, then it will respond that tool calling required is yes, and then it will also add the tool name and the tool parameter. So this particular tool prompt is crafted in a way that it will always respond in a JSON format. So its response will always be JSON. But that is why I have given like 3 examples here as a few shot prompting. so that every time it generates an output, it must be in a JSON output. And in the JSON output, what it will contain is the conversation stage ID, whether there is a require of calling a tool. If there is a requirement of calling a tool, it needs to also specify what tool that it needs to call and what parameters that the tool would need. Now, how it would know what are all tools that is available to it, and that is where we have said here salesperson has access to the following tools, and we are passing the tools. How we are passing the tools is simply by checking this particular logic. So what is happening is whenever you are calling the process message function, it is first calling this particular function, invoke stage tool analysis. So this is the function where the analysis is being done. So this particular code is basically fetching all the tool details, that is all the tool info, and in this tool info you specify what are all the function name, what is the name of the function, description of the function, and parameters that are available. So this information, this whole information is being fed into the prompt as a tool's description. You see, this is the tool description. So this information is being fed. So if you check the prompts.py, this is where it gets all this information. And so that means when this particular prompt will be executed by AI would read through the conversation history, and it will understand, and it will know what all tool it has access to, and based on that it will generate the JSON response with the tool name and tool parameters. Once that response is received, it will basically return back the response. So this response is a JSON formatted response. In each and every step of the conversation, we are checking if the tool required is yes. If tool required is yes, then we are checking if the tool name is meeting scheduler or on-site appointment or price inquiry or gym appointment availability. You can add more as you need, right? If you have like 5 other tools, if you want to integrate with your CRM, you can basically just introduce a new tool here, add a new function, add the details of the function here, and here you just specify if the tool name is that particular function, then call that function. As simple as that. Okay, and then once that tool calling has happened, it will get that response from the tool, and that particular tool output is being used in the final AI response using this particular agent prompt template. I hope this is all making sense to you. And once the final response is received, that response is being returned back to the process speech output here, and then we take that output and we basically store the output into the message history here, so that as the conversation progresses, it keeps on saving the user input and the assistant or AI generated response into the Redis in-memory database. Now, one of the things that also was asked in your feedback was how should the AI agent know when to end the call, right? And that is a really important step to make sure that the call doesn't just go into the loop or doesn't just get ended, right? So that is where what I have done is, if you look at the prompt, you will see that we said that whenever the conversation is complete, indicate with end of call, right? So that is what we are doing here, is whenever there is end of call in the response text, we are saying conversation has ended, please hang up the phone. So this will basically call the Twilio API to hang up the particular call. And this is it. And this is how the entire communication is happening with the AI sales agent. Now, in order to test, what I have done is I have defined a company name called Be Healthy. And the Be Healthy is a personalized gym company which provides fitness service, including gym and per specific diet. They have three different product. Like they have a silver gym membership, they also have a platinum gym membership and gold membership. So, and based on a specific client's problem, the AI sales agent can look through the product description and basically suggest whatever plan is perfect for that user. I have set the conversation purpose and this AI sales agent as Emily. Now what I will do is I will create a copy of this particular sample file. I have created this .env file with all the API key and Elevenlabs API key and all these other details. So what we will do now next is we are going to test how this is working. I'll activate the Conda environment where I have installed all the requirements. So I have also created this requirement.txt that contains all the module that you need. And by the way, I've also created the Docker file. So if you do not have Python installed in your local system and you do not want to manage a separate environment, you can actually use the Docker file and the Docker compose file to start the application. You don't need to do anything. You know what I'll do? I'll actually use the Docker file to do that. That will be better, right? Because I have to anyway run the Redis as Docker image. So it's better I use the Docker compose here to even show you how it will work. Before I run anything, what I have to do in Groq http 5000, this will give me a public URL. I have to update my env file with this particular public URL, and then what I have to do is come to this Twilio manage phone number dashboard and just update the URL here, save it so that Twilio knows where to call back the APIs when there is a communication happening. So it's building the application, it's copying all the code into a container, installing all the modules. So this part may take some time for you when you run it. Don't worry about it, just let it run. Okay, so as you can see, both my app and the Redis is started. So that's good. And because it's a gym company, what I'm going to do is I'll say my name is Avijit and I'm looking for a gym membership to address my back pain. Okay, so I have received the start call API, and there you go. I have started getting the call. Just accept it.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Hello, Avijit. This is Emily calling from Behealthy. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How can I assist you today regarding your interest in a gym membership to address back pain?
Yeah, I was looking for a gym membership to address my back pain. What is the cost of your gym membership?
The price for our gym membership is $9.99 per month. Would you like to hear more about our membership options that can specifically help with addressing your back pain?
No, not at the moment. Thank you.
I understand. When you're ready, feel free to reach out to us to learn more about how our gym membership options can help address your back pain. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. If you ever change your mind or have any questions, feel free to reach out. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
And there you go. It has also automatically disconnected the phone, as you can see. And if I go here into this application, and if you check the logs, you will see that it has created this call SID to track the entire conversation. So this is the same call SID that's being used. And the best part is I have created this particular workflow, which is like a webhook, where I basically just created a simple switch function where I have said if the membership is silver membership or gold membership or platinum membership, go to this specific set function. And for the silver membership, it was $9.99. And this is what probably the AI agent have called in their API response. Just to check whether it has done that is, if you can see this execution, I can see that it has executed with the silver gym membership option. So that means the tool function has actually worked and it has faced the $9.99 as response, which it has said in its response when I was communicating with the AI sales agent. I really hope that this has given you some sense on how the entire AI sales agent process is working. Now, one of the problem that I have seen, while working on this solution is its latency. Of course, the latency is not really that good because there are several function calling that is happening when the AI agent is responding. Also, if you see the prompt template is also very big. So that means the AI also is taking, so that means even OpenAI is taking some time to respond back. Now, to resolve those issues, there are a few things that you can apply. First thing is you can use a more fine-tuned model. Instead of using an OpenAI general model, you can use a fine-tuned model. You can definitely create similar conversation history example and fine-tune OpenAI or whatever model that you are using to return a specific conversation-like response. Then you do not need to provide these big templates or this big prompt, and you can use you can use smaller prompts even to get the similar kind of response. Same thing goes with the stage tool analyzer thing. You can use a customized model which will always generate in a JSON response. And on top of that, what you can do is, instead of using the Elevenlabs API to generate a human-like response, you could use Twilio provided paid models. Of course, that is going to introduce some cost, but in that case, you can, instead of you are calling the audio helpers, get the MP3 and then play it, you can directly call Twilio to do like response.say and provide that particular paid model ID. Twilio itself will say the text that you will send in that particular API call, in a more realistic human-like voice. So these are something that I'll probably work on later on and update and enhance the project to make sure the latency is good and the conversation is more realistic. And of course, like last time, please provide your feedback and suggestions on how you want to see this particular code or project or application be enhanced, and I'll definitely work on that as well. And just like last time, this entire code is behind a very small paywall to support the channel and also help create more such tutorials. So yeah, it would be really good if you can consider making a purchase of the code for less than a price of a coffee and help support the channel. And you will also receive updates on this code as and when I make some updates. Now, of course, those of you who have already made a purchase, I have already sent out an email with the updated code. If you have not received it, please reach out into the Discord channel. Also, on top of that, in the last video, I have shared a coupon to get a 50% discount. Now, I had created that particular discount code for 20 users, still have like 5 or 6 of such coupon remaining, as I can see. So if you're interested, please make a purchase, use the coupon code KNOWTOGETHER50 to get 50% discount when making the purchase. Now, I really hope that you have learned something new from this video. If you have learned something new or found value in the video, please give it a like and definitely subscribe to the channel, as I'm going to bring more such cool projects and ideas in future in this channel. So make sure to subscribe and join our Discord community. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.